Hello everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel called Living in Hayward, Wisconsin, where we talk about all things real estate related and also about living in Hayward, Wisconsin and what that's like. I'm Audrey Miller. I'm the broker owner of Northwest Wisconsin Realty Team. We're located right on Main Street in Hayward, Wisconsin. And today I'm here to talk to you all about home inspections. Sometimes buyers have a lot of questions about what's involved with home inspections, what happens if something comes up that's an issue, all of that. So I'm going to delve into that with you today, and hopefully you find this video helpful and informative. Okay, so we've been looking at homes together, you and I, if I'm working with you as a buyer, and we finally identified the property that you'd like to place an offer on. But then the question comes up, do I need a home inspection? Do I want a home inspection? You know, what's involved with all of that? How do I make a choice about that? Again, first of all, if you're working with me, I'm a very experienced agent, so that's always helpful in deciding what to do when it comes to contingencies of your offer, inspections being one of those. I will say, first of all, I never try to talk someone out of having a home inspection if they are not comfortable waiving it. In fact, I will have you sign a form that is called Buyer Acknowledgement of Risk when skipping inspections. And I'll have you sign that as part of the offer and packet related to your offer. Because I, again, would never want someone to skip an inspection if they were not comfortable. However, in a competitive market, such as we've been experiencing since 2019, probably fall of 2019 until current, there are a lot of buyers who are choosing to waive inspections because obviously less contingencies makes your offer more preferable to a seller. So when there are multiple offers, which is fairly common still in June of 2024, buyers are often opting to skip inspections and deal with things on their own if something comes up related to the property. My advice in terms of whether to bypass inspections or not, what is the feel of the home? How new is the home? Does the foundation look solid? Does the home seem well maintained? Is the roof relatively new or at least not going to need to be replaced immediately? You know, some of the major factors in a home, and I just really feel like foundation and overall condition is probably the biggest thing. A lot of other items, let's say the furnace is 20 years old and it might go out in the next 3, 5, 7 years. Not a huge cost. When you're a homeowner, you're going to have ongoing costs. But does it seem like there may have been deferred maintenance? Does it seem as though there could be more big issues? Is the roof sagging? Are there cracks in the foundation? You know, is there things that could be a big financial impact to you after purchasing the home? In that case, I would recommend an inspection. And sometimes people choose to just do a well and septic inspection and not a home inspection, as those are two other major items if they were to need to be replaced. When it comes to septics, there were steel tanks back in the day. They stopped using those around the early 90s. I can tell you that in the time since 2018 that I've been in the real estate business, I have not seen a steel tank that did pass an inspection, and I have very, very rarely seen a concrete tank that didn't pass an inspection, although there's been a very few of those. So if you have a steel tank, I mean, this is just one example of knowledge that I can help you with. If there's a steel tank, you probably are going to need to have that septic replaced. So then you may want to get an inspection. If the property has a steel tank versus a concrete tank, there's records that can be pulled on the county site, and there's some visual indications of what kind of a tank might be on the property. Drilled wells tend to last forever, I'll say, tongue in cheek, but they do. You may have to replace a pump every so often, and those are not super expensive, kind of similar to maybe the cost of a new furnace. But when you're going about putting an inspection contingency in the offer, you would have your home, maybe outbuildings like a garage inspection, and then potentially a well and septic inspection, which is put onto a different form that is called the Addendum B in Wisconsin. And then you can choose to have radon testing, although we don't have a lot of high levels of radon in northern Wisconsin. That's something you can choose to do. And then you could get some other testings that are outside of the scope of the home inspection, such as mold testing if you suspected the house of having mold. These are very rare tests that I see. but they would be additional. And then a water test is typically included with the well inspection if you're getting a well inspection, so you can make sure that you have clean drinking water at the property. I have a list of inspectors that I can provide or recommend to you, but in the end, you're welcome to hire anyone you want to do the inspection for you. And the cost of inspections is going to range from $800 to $1,200 based on the size of the house, based on the location, and based on exactly what you're having the inspector do and what things you're having him look at when he's at the property. So you've identified which inspector you want to work with. You have hired them to come to the property on a specific date, and you are welcome to be at the property during the inspection. You can walk around with the inspector. It typically takes them quite a while. They're very thorough, so it might be 3 to 4 hours. Sometimes people just show up near the end of the inspection so they can kind of hear what the inspector might have to show them or have to say. And some folks find it helpful, but a lot of people are not able to be there on the day of inspection. And the inspector will then provide you with a very detailed report with photographs showing any defects, showing any issues with the property, items that may need maintenance, items that may be, something to look into further. They will provide a very detailed report. It's usually 30 to 40 pages. It's got lots of pictures and comments and information within that report. So if you aren't able to attend, no worries. You'll get that report usually the next day. The inspector will also send it to me as your buyer's agent. And then you can feel free to look over that. You can call the inspector for clarification if you'd like. And once you've had a chance to review that, then you and I will connect and you can let me know if you have any specific concerns regarding the inspection results. If you don't, we continue on towards closing. If you do, this is where, again, an experienced agent will be a huge help to you. What do you do when you have inspection issues? There's language in the contract, the offer to purchase contract, that covers various scenarios, and there's guidelines for how things move forward after there are inspection issues. So there's a few different options. Sometimes buyers will choose to take care of fixing the items after closing at their own expense, but they will negotiate with the seller for a price reduction. That's done in the form of an amendment. So that's one way to go about coming to a conclusion or a negotiation. There's no set rules on what needs to be fixed, what can be negotiated. Unless you're working with a government loan, then sometimes they have things that they require to be fixed, like VA, FHA, USDA, etc. On a conventional loan, there's not usually things that have to be fixed. It's more between the buyer and seller. The seller doesn't have to fix the items. The buyer doesn't have to purchase the property if there are defects, and the defects are defined within the offer to purchase. But in essence, it's something that would significantly impact the value of the home and property, would be of harm to the inhabitants, safety-wise, etc., or would shorten the life of the property significantly. In a nutshell, that's the definition of a defect. So let's say you want the seller to fix certain items versus coming to an agreement on a price reduction. Now you will provide an amendment to begin with, listing the items you want the seller to fix at their expense prior to closing. You would present that, or I would go ahead and present that to the listing agent, who would talk about it with the seller. Maybe the seller agrees, yes, I'll take care of those items. Maybe they don't. They might come back with another amendment saying, okay, I'll fix this and this and this, but I'm not going to fix items number 3 and 4. And again, then you have choices. Do you want to proceed? Are you happy with that? And then if it comes to where you cannot reach an agreement by negotiating back and forth with items that may need to be taken care of, or if you just are choosing to walk away due to the defects that have been found, then you file a notice related to the offer. And that notice gets presented. You don't need the seller's permission to file that notice. You just send it over and you say, due to these items on the report, and then you either give the ultimatum of the seller needing to fix them, or you may want to vacate the contract because of those defects. So there's just a lot of steps along the way. Most times we try to come to terms with any inspection issues. If a buyer still wants to buy and a seller still wants to sell, most things can be resolved. But sometimes there are things that come up in an inspection and the buyer says, no, I just don't want to buy this property anymore. There's some other nuances to this in terms of whether the seller has a right to cure or fix the items or not. There's timelines involved, how much time the seller has to respond to the notice, those types of things. But overall, the process is pretty spelled out, and an experienced agent will be able to walk you through each step of the way, and you always have choices along the way. And a lot of times, this is not a given, but most times if there are defects and the buyer ends up walking away for legal reasons, according to the contract, then the earnest money will be returned to the buyer. The seller typically will agree to do that when there's good cause for vacating the contract. So I don't think I probably answered every question or every scenario related to inspections, but this is some of the main framework of how it works with inspections in northern Wisconsin and what the process is. And again, having a buyer's agent by your side to walk you through all these things, advocating for you, negotiating for you, this is all super important to ending up with the property of your dreams at the price or with the corrections made that you want to have done. Again, thanks for listening and following along. Feel free to comment below. Maybe you've had an experience with an inspection that's been good or bad. Maybe you have some input on that, something else you'd like me to talk about on my channel in the future. But either way, if you want to comment, share, subscribe, I would be happy to help you at any time, whether you're a buyer or a seller. Again, feel free to reach out. I'm Audrey Miller with Northwest Wisconsin Realty Team, and thank you very much for listening.